So we have a number of different modes and views we can use in Blender. We can see the different view forms in the top left-hand corner above our motion widget, and in rough order, they're going in increasing amount of processing power used. So our simplest form to use is to use the wireframe. And in wireframe mode, we will just see the outlines of the objects, we'll see the edges highlighted, but we won't have any shading or any information like that. Next up, we can go to solid mode, which does give us a basic level of shading. We can also keep going so that we can see it in material preview mode. And finally, we also have rendering mode as well. For modeling, most people will work in solid mode, since that provides us with a bit of depth perception, but doesn't take an undue amount of processing power. Sometimes wireframe is also useful though, so we will use that especially if we're trying to rig up a model. And there's also a fifth option which can be combined with the other four, and that is X-ray mode. So X-ray mode lets you view through an object. So here I can see both the front and the back side of my object, and this can be useful once we start to combine it with some of our modes as well. So X-ray as well, if you flip it over to X-ray in wireframe, you can see the wires on the other side. The other thing that X-ray mode lets you do is it also allows you to select objects that are in the background. So in object mode itself, that doesn't do too much because you'll select an entire object at a time. But we can switch over as well to edit mode. Now, edit mode is a bit different than some of the other programs we've worked with. Object mode works mostly the same way that moving objects around in Tinkercad would, but edit mode actually allows us to select and manipulate points within an object. And the nice thing about X-ray mode is that when we're in X-ray, we can select both the objects in the front and in the back at the same time. If we were just in normal mode, where we didn't have X-ray view turned on, we'd only select the front of those objects when I circle over them. But if we're in X-ray mode, we can get both the front and the back, which can be quite useful. When we're in edit mode, we can edit in a couple of different ways. We can change the edit mode with these three viewpoints that are right beside it on the left-hand side of the view screen. We can put it in vertex mode, which allows us to select corners. We can put it in edge mode, which allows us to select, well, edges. And we can also put it into face mode, which allows us to select flat faces of the entire object. And depending on what you want to do, you might want one of these three different modes. I often work in vertex mode, but I'll switch between all three of them as needed. And finally, we also have Sculpt Mode. Sculpt Mode works kind of like Sculpt GL would. This is the type of modality that it's based off of, and it gives us a whole bunch of different tools that we can use to manipulate an object. Now, if I try to do this to a square, it's not going to do too much because we don't actually have a lot to work with in terms of vertices. We need more vertices before we'll be able to move stuff around. But if I apply a modifier to get myself some more vertices, then I can start sculpting in sculpt mode, just like I would in another sculpting program. There are some other modes as well that you can use, but these are going to be the three main ones that we'll be working with for the time being.